had beings come up to my bedroom window at the age of, I can't remember, I must have been 4 or 5, like my kids now. I remember telling my parents the fairies come and visited me. And what I'd noticed happening was that I started noticing to the depths of like my bones and bone marrow and intestines and parts coming out like that movie Aliens. And the next thing I know, I'm in this meditative state. I'm fully consciously aware. My whole body's vibrating, and this thing just burst energetically out of me. And then through that energetic burst, my whole body went into like a kaleidoscope of gold and colors, and all I could see was sacred geometry.
Hi, I'm Peggy Oberthier, and today I'm speaking with Guy Lawrence. Guy is a meditation teacher and coach who works with people on transformation through inner work. He hosts the Let It In podcast, which has now reached nearly 450 episodes of deep conversations. He co-founded Live in Flow, a retreat company that facilitates immersive retreats and one-day workshops throughout Australia and around the world. His approach is grounded in demystifying these practices and making them practical. And I can speak to this personally because Guy changed my life after I attended 2 of his retreats. Guy, welcome.
Thank you. Is that me? Like it doesn't sound like it. Does it? Like, holy moly, who's that guy?
Yeah. Well, this is what I love. You're so humble, and this is why I love chatting to you. This is our second conversation, so I'm so grateful you came back on because I know you're super busy. But you've been sharing lots of beautiful tidbits of wisdom on your podcast. And you shared a lot of your story last time. But today I'm going to go a little bit different if I can, because I want to talk to you about something I've been exploring, which is around spiritual awakening. And the definition of this particular scholar I was telling you about, Dr. Pierce, he talks about this spiritual awakening as a series of mystical, spiritual, or religious experiences that involve a profound, visceral, and immersive shift in one's identity, perception, and worldview. So I want to ask you, looking back over your life, what has been the most significant moments where your sense of who you are really shifted? And I'm particularly curious about hearing about your relationship to the universe itself, consciousness, and your relationship to energy or beings, and that as a concept. So I know that's a big question, but I wanted to just dive in because I want to hear it all, Guy, because I've heard you're very good at sharing like incredible strategies for people just to be embodied and live in their heart space. I want to hear how you got to being so wise and what were the big aha moments. Is that too big of a question to start with?
It's massive, but I love it at the same time. It's funny because you speak about the humility, right? And sometimes it's to my detriment when I should just actually just claim it a bit more, own it and embody it. But at the same time, I've been humbled along the way so many times. I'm very mindful of what I say or claim because there's a new version or reiteration of that self seems to be further down the road. And the deeper you go into this work, the more you explore it. And as you look back, you think, holy shit, like I'm so different. And so I think the wisdom kind of, for me, starts in that, is having enough humility to know that we're living in an ever-changing, growing, expanding universe, and so are we intimately with that relationship to self and to source and everything else. But there's been many moments, especially once I started diving into the retreats and holding space, because that energy that it becomes like Play-Doh, it really starts to move and shape us. And if we allow ourselves to surrender into that, then these new reiterations of self start to present themselves. And to me, that's just one step closer to source, one step closer to absolute truth, because we have our truth, our version of reality, but then we have totality and, what is absolute. And then it's just that relationship and gap between is that we get closer and closer before the mind gets in the way of everything.
Yeah. Well, I can say like with certainty, so that you've had so many brilliant podcast guests, right? So there's that intellectual understanding of energy and consciousness and, quantum physics. And for me, as I listened to all your podcasts prior to going to your retreat, I was like, oh, wow, this is incredible. So it changed me intellectually. But on a visceral level,
Mm.
being the recipient of the 8 hands on, I'm actually getting goosebumps from my whole body now, just thinking about it. I've never felt energy like that before. I could understand it as a concept, but to lie down and have 8 pairs of hands just lovingly, intentionally sending this energy to me on a healing, and it felt like a drug hitting my body. I was like, wow,
Mm.
energy is real. So I was changed after that. So I'm wondering what what were the moments for you that where you were just like, what is
There's
going on?
dozens. There's dozens. The embodiment, which I was going to lead to, like once you have that embodied experience, there are so many all the way back from childhood when I
Wow.
had beings come up to my bedroom window at the age of, I can't remember, I must have been 4 or 5, like my kids now, and I can still see them to this day when I close my eyes. That
Oh
were coming
God.
up, and I was
Wow.
like, and I remember telling my parents the fairies come and visited me. There's these beautiful angelic white
Oh,
like things that were dancing around, and I still can, like I said, remember that. So it starts open windows to possibility. Those things don't tend to leave me, but as we started to accelerate and leaning into having meditation experiences and feeling that energy for the first time move through my body, where my muscles contracted. It was so strong. It was like a charge going through, and having to deal with the shit that brings up in that moment. For some reason, there's with me and where I am on my journey, there's always been an ability to decompartmentalize and not swim in the emotion and the drama and the story that's happening, if that makes sense. So with that, that's allowed me to continue to go, wow, is there more? That's let me lean in, even though it's uncomfortable, don't get me wrong. um, to the point then I was having spontaneous, just out of body experiences that were
wow.
embodied. So I'd come out the top of my head, just laying in bed next to my wife at 3 in the morning. I'm wide awake. And the next thing I know, I'm outside my body, and I felt it come out. And then all of a sudden, it started to happen where I'd go to different realities and start to get shown. And it's like, shit, this is what, and then and then I feel myself coming back into my body. So it was like, that is viscerally happening, but it's like, I'm not really telling anyone except my wife at the time that these
Okay,
things are
can I
going
just
on.
can I just go back to that because it's actually more common than you realize. I mean, a lot of people
Yeah,
are
well,
having these
yeah.
experience. It's crazy. The thing is as you share this, you're like, okay, is this, do I need to go to a psych ward? Like, this is the problem with this
Mm.
particular thread of the spiritual awakening aspect. It's like people think they're going crazy. So you sharing this is just amazing. So when you said you were brought to different realities, like what was the reality that you were brought to?
Well, this is why I started the podcast, by the way, because it was like, huh, okay, is this happening? Right. So the first things that would start happening, what I realized was that when I would go out of body, I'd be fearful, and I would actually start to experience because everything's our perception at the end of the day. And I would be still seen through the lens of perception of trauma, which could create quite a negative environment, and it would scare me and come back. But the moment I realized I could lean into love and hold a space of love and a loving presence, that would dissipate. But then what started happening is a few things. One, there's a few clear ones. One was that I was showed myself, where I got taken out, and I remember being pulled through a tunnel, and I remember it was like skydiving but going up, not down. If that makes sense. I don't know if you've ever done skydiving, and you're just falling, and you can feel all the clouds going through you, and you just like, so it was like that but going up into layers and layers of reality, up to the point where there's this. I was in the stars, and there was this giant eye. You can still see it's huge, huge. And I'm looking at it, and it blinks at me, and all of a sudden I know it's me. And it's some larger part of myself. And it was like intuitively I got the message, which was basically, because I was stuck in my life at the time where I was still in 180 nutrition, and it was like, get on with your life, guy. You got the back end of the universe. Stop being a wuss and start leaning in and moving forward. Like it was evident, it was plain as day. So then I came flying back down and then back in. I was like, oh my god, that just happened. That was nuts. So that started to happen, and then I got taken out, and then I got shown a reality where it looked like Game of Thrones. It was like I was actually able to fly along the ocean front with these beautiful castles. I'd never seen anything like it. Interestingly enough, the healing session I had the next week after an event, she pulls tarot cards for me. She pulled the card with the castles that I saw in that out of body experience. And it was the more, and I'm not, at the time, I wasn't trying to have them. If anything, I'm kind of like very intrepid about it all. And there was always an element of me backing out, so it started to open up more and more, and I feel like there's a larger part of myself that's showing me this for some reason. I don't know why, because earlier in the meditation, like years before, I went on a wormhole. I just come out and went down one. I was like, oh my God, that was so real. And then I backed out what was going to be presented to me on the other side, because I was still like, oh my God, So these things were happening and embodied. But then the key thing is that we can get lost in the idea, the romanticism of having these experiences and doing these things. And it's actually just keeping us distracted from the self. So I think that's why I've been very hesitant to just openly speak about these things without making sure that people understand that, because it was still highlighting unhealed wounds within me that energetically needed to be released, whether it's mine, ancestral, past life. I've got to the point I really don't give a shit anymore. I don't care about the story behind it. None of it really matters. None of it matters except the present moment.
Yeah, and I completely agree. And in fact, the more that we think about that stuff, it brings us away from the self. Like it's not
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it serves a purpose if that's where your journey's at and you really want to understand your identity. But the more we get stuck on those labels, they just cling to, of who I was in a past life or etc. So yeah, I think the more and more I work with people, I just say, look, I'm just not gonna share that. So that's incredible. Now, what about your understanding of your capacity of your own gifts, like what you're bringing to retreats and workshops? Like the knowledge is there, right? And we can hear it. And this wisdom, it's deep wisdom it's quite it hits people, and you know exactly how to hit the person where they're at, which is really interesting. But what about the other aspect of what you're doing? Because I know it's not just words when they land. There's this energy coming from you. So what is your understanding of how that developed for you and your relationship to energy?
Yeah, and that continues to develop. And in my own admission, I've had a hard time being vocal about it in some ways. And I kind of hide behind the podcast. I hide behind the retreats. And so there's still a part of me that struggled to be seen, to be honest with you. So, which I've been claiming more and more, and just oh, fuck it. I'll just, it's got to get to the point, because I'm getting pushed in that direction anyway. But yeah, so my understanding is as I've continued to work on myself, and working on myself is basically surrendering to the moment more and more. I look at it like we're these divine Tauruses of energy, this ever flowing energy that is hooked up to the body. So the body is the vehicle that allows us to experience life through consciousness. But yet there's these imprints or energetic blocks or charges or whatever that might be at a quantum level that are not emanating in this natural coherent state that should be flowing freely. And that's affecting the energy systems of the body, the endocrine systems that's coming out of the energetic, then into the biological, and then into the physical, like they're all interrelated. So that flow of movement of energy, then through the stresses of life, we are numbing ourselves to what's ever present. They atrophy. And through then the mind and the story and the traumas and the dramas that we concoct in our own minds, fucking can be so far from the truth, it's not funny, is keeping us disconnected from that. So it's a slippery slope, because we need the mind to operate and function in life, but at the same time, we need to allow the present moment to deepen, to feel into what's there. And that's when it starts to feel uncomfortable. So my point being, through now 36 retreats and maybe, I don't know how many one-day events, 200, I guess.
Wow.
Maybe more, I don't know. Then all the online calls I've held in space. It's a lot of energy that's being amplified, creating a coherent space, which is then calling out all the aspects of myself that are not in resonance, that need to be shed. So through the last 8 or 9 years of doing that, plus the 8 or 9, 10 years before that, before even me owning that, some of my company stepping up, there's been this de-armoring, if you like, this stripping back constantly, because I've purposely been putting myself in environments, because that's my calling, to see where I can take this. And what I noticed happening was that I started noticing to the depths of like my bones and bone marrow and intestines and parts coming out, like that movie Aliens. You know that movie Alien, when that thing bloody bursts out of his stomach and he's like, oh my God, like I've had moments where it's felt like that, and it's just coming out like this deep purging that started to happen. And that has been happening at a rate that my body has been able to handle. So then there's an adaptation and an expansion that can occur from its reiteration of self every evolutionary cycle. So it's dynamic, it's expanding and growing. And that is, if there's one message I want to get across for everyone listening to this, is that we got to think in those terms, not in, I just want to heal so I can just not make any changes in my life and carry on the way I am. That paradigm's gone. And so, not that I love enjoying life and I love experiencing it, but I'm always honoring these aspects too. So then what would happen every time there'd be that reiteration of self? And that was another mystical moment I had, because at the retreat, I only felt like I had a cannonball in just under my solar plexus, between my navel and solar plexus, but having to facilitate and hold. So I had to hold space for myself, be aware it was there, but not jump into the drama or story of what it might be, to hold space for everyone else. So there's huge lessons in that. And then when I finished the retreat, I came home that night and fell asleep next to my wife, and I was spent. I remember I was just spent. And the next thing I know, I'm in this meditative state. I'm fully consciously aware. My whole body's vibrating, and this thing just burst energetically out of me. And then through that energetic burst, my whole body went into like a kaleidoscope of gold and colors, and all I could see was sacred geometry. Now I'm fully awake, and there's no body in myself. I mean, if I'd stopped the process, I would have been able to go back to physical. But this thing just moved and moved and moved and moved and moved. And in between the bursting of energy and that kaleidoscope of energy, it took me back as a child. I crawled up through this narrow cave, and then I met my inner child. And that's what the moment I saw myself, there was a healing that occurred and this huge release. So I'm having these embodied experiences, and I could probably, if I sat down and thought about it, name a couple of dozen of experiences of different intensities that have been happening like this, and even accelerating this year. So my relationship with energy has become very, very different due to those experiences. And then it gets to the point where you're saturating every single fiber or cell of your body. There's a saturation to where your body is just humming and holding the resonance that doesn't require your mind in any shape or form to participate in that experience. In fact, it just gets in the freaking way of it. And so the challenge has been actually speaking to myself in a way that just the more I just keep getting out the way, the more different things to occur. But then what I do is apply in my way, which I've always done with the retreats, is like I kind of lean in and then start opening up that exploratory idea more and more, and get feedback and evidence, and different things occur from that.
How do you do that? That's really fascinating. What's your process for that? To get forget.
Well, the challenge is one of the challenges is like in a full retreat, obviously with this, I work with very gifted healers in themselves, but it's always done in a group container, group environment. So it's not like individual and things like that. So it's like, well, let's explore a bit, let's play. And I actually never spoke about this, but a good friend of mine had earlier this year, had a baby, and it had jaundice when it was born, and it was pretty intense. Apparently, the baby was yellow, and he sent out a message, because he's fully into this work and everything, asking, is there anyone available just to send some love and light to our baby, because they wanted to keep the baby in hospital for up to a week and put in a light machine or whatever they do. So I got the text message, and I was like, I just put the kids down and put to bed, and I was like, they've had the baby and this, and I just said, send me a photo. I'll see if I can do something from here. And the photo came through. So and it was interesting, because this was the first time I thought, right, I'm just going to see what happens here and just play. If anything, I can benefit. And I went in, and the next thing I know, the energy just starts moving. It moves my hands, it moves my body. I'm not even participating through it. And I spent about 10, 15 minutes just letting it move. And I was like, well, connected to the photograph. And it turns out, he messaged me, the jaundice was gone by 11 o'clock that night. So that was about 7. About 11 o'clock. And now, in defense, there was another healer from somewhere else, apparently, that jumped in somewhere in that time frame as well. But that was like the first bit, okay, there we go. So we got some direct feedback there, because my sense was that when the baby came in, she hadn't fully grounded yet, like that energy hadn't fully come in from source. That was my sense. I'm not sure that was the mind coming in. I just let it go. But so then it's like, okay, well, that's happened. Okay, so my window is opening. So it's like, let's play, let's explore more. So there've been multiple times when I've been leaning into that. And then having Rob Wergan on my podcast, who's on the Heal documentary. I mean, I had him on twice. I have a beautiful connection with him. But the last time he came on about 3-4 months ago, he pulled me up on it straight away, and wanted to help me own that part, to do more. Because, he'll just have, I mean, he's had 10,000 on the call doing a healing session. It's crazy. And, you can look him online, and the way he works with them one-on-one on stage, and just does it, it's pretty amazing.
Wow. So how's your work transformed with some of the work that you've been, what's your vision now after having worked with Rob? Where is it taking you?
Well, it's still doing the retreats and events, but I'll probably lean into intimate group sessions as well. But I'm just mindful, because it's challenging. Like it's like I see this work for anyone that wants to improve at any state of capacity, just like movement, yoga, going to the gym, eating well, like the energetic component and the spiritual, the depth of spiritual connection for me is 101, really. But we don't. We wait till we're in so much pain or so much suffering. Like it's almost like part of the human condition. I mean, we all do it. We're all guilty of it. I'm not saying, but you know, so it tends to gravitate towards that. I don't know how it's going to open up yet, but I'm happy to work with anyone as long as they're prepared to be open and willing. You know, no babysitting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, I know. I think there is definitely, if there's a reluctance, it can be very tricky to navigate, or fear.
Yeah, I've tried it. I just got exhausted. You know,
Yeah.
there was a point doing the events where I want to help everyone because it's helped me. And, you know, as somebody said to me, you only want to work with thirsty horses. You don't want to, you don't want to be trying to get them to the pond. Yes.
Yeah, it's funny, but it always aligns though. Like I always find you just set that intention, and the clients that come and find you, they find you. It's like,
Of
it's
course.
the
Yeah.
people that have been dragged there, and I think we've probably spoken about that before. It's,
Mm,
their journey is they're not quite understanding, or they're not ready, or whatever it is. Now, I wanted to ask you because I've been listening to your little snippets of wisdom. You speak about dropping into the heart space, and I speak a lot about
mm.
this as well with my clients. And I wonder how to get out of the mind and into the heart, and you have a tool of like breathing into the heart.
Mm.
What other ways do you see that you help people drop into their heart so they can access that wisdom?
Tune into the heart's wisdom. Again, there's fundamental ways of looking at it. You got this, like I always try and break this down to simplicity, right? You've got the spiritual gym, and then you've got the incidental fitness, spiritual incidental fitness. So they go hand in hand. So when I used to work in the fitness industry, it was like, okay, your health is 24/7. It's not what you do for an hour a week in the gym 3 times a week. It's not, right? So that's how I start to look at it. It's like every moment is an opportunity to become present. Every moment is an opportunity to connect back. But because of our linear life that we live Monday to Friday, we're hanging for the weekend, we squeeze things in here and there. And we have constructed a life that is from the mind and from the past. Because it's the if we're ever expanding and growing beings and we're resisting that growth, then we're making choices based upon normally a fear-based response, which is based from a trauma or an unresolved wound that can be setting up our life around us. But it's all happening unconsciously, and it's all very normal because we're all doing it, and the whole world is being perpetuated in a fear-based narrative right now, if we tune into that. Right? So that's what we're up against. So becoming a more heart-centered based paradigm of life, we have to kind of pull back and look at all aspects from the moment we get up through to when we go to bed, of how can we start making choices that are very small but are very supportive in the direction of what it is that we want. Because I feel it's not really any one tool or one hack that will get you there. It's the collective approach of embodiment of the present moment, right? But the biggest challenge with that then is what I call the North Star, is that if we don't really know what it is that we're wanting to embody in the here and now, what informational set are we going to give our beautiful biological being to embody? This is always going to default back to programming. Because if you look at, like, we've got a pyramid of hierarchy, and there's two things. Willingness is the first thing, then awareness, and then nervous system, safety, and regulation. So those three go hand in hand. So if you have a body that is conditioned and doesn't feel safe due to the nervous system stimulation of our life, it's always going to be challenging to get to the heart, no matter what tool you use. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And so it sort of sounds like it starts with the nervous system because I've had a few clients that say, well, I can't connect to my heart.
Mm.
So you're saying if you start with the nervous system, just perhaps,
So you could
yeah.
sit in your bathtub and feel your body, like actually just start to connect to your body, like start to soothe. If you're in anxiety, feel into the anxiety. Don't mute any feeling that's currently presently starting to make itself known to you, because all that is a direct communication that the body is trying to attract our attention, that we automatically go to the mind, put meaning to, with absolutely zero idea where that charge is coming from, that's creating that chemical response and creating that emotion. But we just assume because it's the pattern that's been playing out, and that's the story, that's something that's brought into us. All those elements are keeping us disconnected from the heart that's protected. But we start with the heart because if you look at the energy systems of the body, the heart can be the most accessible one to get to at first, you know. So even just pausing before you go to eat food, pausing before you go to make a decision, or if you're in a reactive place, just it all comes back to breath, awareness, presence, and allowing yourself to feel. The more we feel, the more we're going to connect to our intuitive self. So if we avoid our feelings, if we avoid the truth at the source of our feelings, all that is keeping us busy and disconnected from the essence of truth. So when that starts to percolate up in our careers, in our relationships, in where we live, in our choices of all those decisions we're making, we tend to resist because it feels too uncomfortable and too unknown, which is that at some level, keeping us disconnected from the very flow of life and the expansion of the soul that wants to come through. So the more we honor that, the more congruent we become, and the more our life opens up in beautiful ways as well.
So I love that. And I know that in your retreats, the space that you and Matt and Petra held was a safe space to actually feel. And so I think that, people can start off with something like a retreat or an experience or a workshop because we need that connection, sometimes that safety to be able to access those feelings of being held and have it, like reflected back to us. What's your process for when a feeling arises? Like for me, I notice there's certain feelings when I get them, I'm like, oh, I'm distracting. Oh, hang on, what am I distracting myself from? Like it's an automatic response. And then I stop myself and I have to go back to a feeling. And I know it'll pass in 2 minutes if I just honor it. But there are certain things that I'll do. I'll breathe. I'm sending love to the parts of myself that are feeling that, and I just repeat. I say it. That's okay. What's your process for when something, I heard you speak about, when your flight was delayed and your whole process with that, and just leaning into it. But are there certain things? I know you have to drop out of your mind, but are there certain things that you say to yourself to help you get to that space?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Is the
I
first thing.
love I love that one. I love that so much.
Oh, what's going on here? Right? It's feeling and it's hard. Like interestingly, I had a big shift yesterday. I've been working on myself through different practices, and I felt something brewing the night before, and it was bubbling up yesterday, and I could just feel the agitation just like and I'm like I could bite my tongue because Ellis is banging a toy, like it's like and it's like whoa, what's going, so it's catching yourself first and being in that place. And what I'll do, like, life's busy, life's chaotic, sometimes it's challenging, but at the same time I will clock myself, isn't that interesting, what's going on here? And I normally put my hand on the body of to where I'm feeling it, as if I'm soothing my child or you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, how would you give love to someone else for a moment and just feel and just like, whew, what the hell's going on here? It's okay. It's okay. Like, I use that a lot as well. It's okay. And just let it settle down and be with what it is. But what I tend to do, I mean, I've set a life up for myself now that um, I'm in a place of flexibility. So I won't work in that moment. I stop. It's like the world can go on hold for the next 10 minutes or 20 minutes. I will remove myself from whatever project or task or everything I'm doing to ensure that that feeling settles down before, as it moves. Because the more you lean into this and the more expansive you want to become, especially if you have people that are leaning into this work, energy healing and everything. I mean, the greatest energy conduits are the ones that actually just work on themselves, and the rest is an expression of that, not the next shiny new tool I've got to learn, right? So for me, then that's a really important part of the process. So if I need to go for a walk or jump on my bike or just be with that, I will remove myself, which I know is not realistic for everyone, but at the same time, I think it's critical if you want to allow that aspect of ourselves to continue to evolve, because there's always wisdom and a lesson in that, especially when it dissipates. Quite often it'd be like, oh, some old memories might even come up or whatever it might be.
Yeah. It's so funny. And when you realize you just literally signed up for every single thing that you're experiencing, it's like
Yeah.
this big cosmic joke. And I think if you can have I love that. Yeah, isn't that interesting? I love that sort of that neutrality of it, because it lends itself to just no resistance, rather than going straight to a reaction.
Yeah.
Now, you speak about 5D and going into 5D. I'd love to ask you about what is your understanding of what 5D is and where we're heading in the future, and perhaps in that lens, like, what's your vision? Because I know you're such a deep thinker and you speak to so many souls, and you're very curious, but what's your vision for the future, for your children? Your beautiful daughter who's now can read with a blindfold on. I mean, it's pretty incredible. What is your vision of 3D and what does that look like? Oh, sorry,
So
5D.
yeah, my vision of 5D, ultimately it's the way of the heart. It's like, I was only having this conversation, I think at the retreat last week. I can't remember what it was. And there's a few analogies that come forward, and one is this thought of that we all attain masculine and feminine energy, like it, right? That so there's parts, and then it's like, well, what does that even mean? I'm a man, and but then I look at the way of energy moves, and for instance, you could have water, which would be the feminine, and the glass, the container, which is the masculine. Okay. Now, without the glass, that water could just go anywhere. And I think that's what can happen in our industry a lot. So if it's uncontained and just completely flowing, if it doesn't have riverbanks, or if, there's no, it'll just go, it just scatters. And it's like when you can meet people that are so freaking out there or not contained on planet Earth, it's like they're all that, right? Mm. So then but we're living in a paradigm which has been very the masculine driven energy, which is just the container. Without the life force, we're devoid of life force. We're devoid of that feminine energy. That is, you only have to look at even architecture, buildings, the systems that are in place. Everything is done from this very physical, 3D masculine paradigm, right? So it's like a bird's been flying with one wing, not two. So we're flying around in circles and circles with just the wing being the masculine energy. And there's the rise of the feminine energy that's currently happening, which is, to me, the heart, the expression of the heart, that's my vision of the future, is that then this is going to help create an equilibrium and balance where both are required. Money is energy, but it needs a masculine spreadsheet. Without both, you're just hoping for the best, right? So I start to look at things in all aspects of areas of life. Well, where can we start to really bring that in? Because the way I operate in my life now, and like when you mentioned Ava, being able to read Zen cards with a blindfold on now, which has been happening, and even my own gifts that are coming through more and more, is that, well, that has actually come from a sense of already knowing, a remembrance, not from a mind-based. I didn't learn this in an academic book, right? Or study, my study of embodiment has been the way I've brought it online, not my study of books, but but my interest in podcasts and my interest in that information, but ensuring that I take it into an embodied practice has been the way I move forward. So the way I've been navigating my life now is actually a very heart-based paradigm that is navigating is the engine to the mind, not the other way around. So at the moment, we've got it the other way around. And I feel that if it's interesting, I only recorded a podcast this morning with the lady that does the blindfold training with the kids.
Oh, the mindset. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, Dr. Edith. And she used a beautiful paradigm. It's like once upon a time as humans, we might have believed we're just animals and we can't swim. So we never went in the ocean. And we're fearful of it. And then one day we started dip our toe in it. We go, oh, that's interesting. And then not only dip our toe in it, we realize that we can learn to swim. And then when we learn to swim, this whole new world opens up to us of possibility. But not only do we learn to swim, we can kayak, we can go surfing, we can do windsurfing. Oh my God, we can do free diving. Oh my God, I can do scuba diving. Oh my God, look at all these fish in the ocean. And this whole new potential opens up. And then one person sees the next person that learned to swim, but for the last, 2,000 years, they never thought they could swim. But all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's the 4-minute mile effect, right? Once that one guy was in there, Bannister did it, then everyone started running the 4-minute mile. So my hope and my vision and my dream for the future of my children is the 4-minute mile is the heart-based paradigm. It's this real connection, because once you're in that space and you start to connect to not only the Earth's energetic field, this beautiful, living, vibrant being, and the sun's energetic field, and the moons and the cosmos, and then source and spirit itself, then everything starts to become more harmonious. Everything is much more connected, and it's a symbiotic relationship. We are in union with it. I love what Zach Bush said as well. It's like, hang on, we as people over here, the white folk, are indigenous people as well. We've just forgotten our way. We're all indigenous people of this planet. And if we all started having that wisdom within us, that knowing and that belonging, then the world and the choices we would make would be so different to unconscious, stressed, disconnected paradigm that many of us have gone through or are going through before we pop out the other side.
Wow, that's so brilliant.
Yeah.
The energy of your words is so powerful. I can feel my heart expanding, and I have full body goosebumps. So it's really beautiful, and I'm sure the listeners are going to feel the same energy from your wisdom that you've just shared. Thank you so much. It's so incredible. Is there something else that you'd love to share? What's coming up for you, retreats, or where can people find you? Well, that'll be in the show notes. They know where they can find you. But what are you most excited about in the next 3 months?
Next 3 months. What am I most excited about? Well, we've been doing advanced follow-ups for the retreats as well in real intimate containers. So anyone that's gone through a retreat, we've started doing like 12 to 14 people. And we ran one, and that was that was incredible. So we've got one next weekend. So that's starting to happen. Las Vegas, I believe, is happening in October. So I'm about 98% sure that that's going to happen. So we'll be running a 3-day event out there with a dear friend of mine as well. And I'm slowly working towards opening up, doing small, intimate, energetic sessions with people online if they choose to want to dive in and continue to work on themselves. Yeah.
Sounds incredible. That sounds incredible. So I can't thank you enough for your precious time shared with me today, my little podcast guy. But it's so much easier when we're in the same country, isn't it?
Welcome.
1 o'clock, much better than getting up so early to
Hi,
deal
this is
with all
unknown
that.
for me, I tell you. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thank you again. And all the information about where you can reach Guy, his podcast, his, if you haven't heard of him, and his beautiful retreats and workshops will be linked in the caption notes. So thank you so much for your time.
No, and thank you, Peggy, and congrats on everything you're doing. It's amazing,
Oh,
mate. It
appreciate
really
it so
is.
much. Thank you so much.